Good afternoon. This is Roy Sheneman from Tier 1 Coaching and Training. We're here with the segment that we're calling Books to Help You Grow as a Leader. In these segments, we will look at a variety of books that have challenged my thinking, that are designed to be encouraging and designed to be to really help us grow as leaders. These come from a variety of fields. So I hope you enjoy it. Today, the first one we want to look at is Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. This is actually one of my favorite books because Mr. Gladwell does a great job of challenging our thinking about some things that are really, really important. In this case, we're talking about education. And here's what we know. This book is really about men and women who do things that are out of the ordinary. In other words, they truly are extraordinary. These are people who seem to excel at everything they do, or at least in their given fields. And so how do they do that? How does that happen? Well, the first point that he brings up is what he calls the Matthew effect. In this case, he recognizes that everyone who's successful will be given opportunities to become more successful. And it's really an interesting idea here. He challenges the idea that developing things like all-star teams and gifted programs in education, the idea that somehow by presenting those to our kids at a very young age, we will somehow help the lower performers become better. What ends up happening is actually the gulf between the high performers and the low performers actually increases instead of decreases. It has the opposite effect, in other words. Why? Because the lower performers tend to give up out of frustration, and they quit early before they become successful. And this is a problem with Mr. Gladwell. And so he talks more about this book. And throughout the book, the next point he talks about is the 10,000 hour rule. And he says this. He says, those who are truly successful in their field, any field, whether it's a sport or an area of business or an educator or what have you, those who are truly the most successful among us become so because they invest more time and energy in developing their skills and their knowledge base. And they spend time working on the nuances of those skills to become better and better. You know, I'm reminded of just movies and things that I've watched in the past where athletes would spend hours just working on just the smallest part of their game. For example, baseball players that would spend hours in a batting cage just to refine their swing and get better at handling a curveball, get better at handling a fastball, and so on and so forth. Baseball players that would spend hours and hours and hours fielding ground balls and fielding fly balls, so they would become better and better at defensively and everything that they do. The same is true for football. The same is true for basketball. The same is true for any other sport that you can think of. The same thing applies in education. The best teachers that I ever had were teachers that were dedicated and spent hours and hours and hours developing their lesson plans, developing the opportunities that we as their students could use to develop our knowledge base and become better at our jobs. So the truth is, according to Mr. Gladwell, it's the difference between an amateur and a professional in whatever field we talk about is 10,000 hours. Now, I don't think this is a literal 10,000 hours as much as it is figurative in the sense that the person who's going to be very successful, the best among the best, is going to invest that additional amount of time, whatever it takes, to become that level. So the key here is having an opportunity to excel. And that opportunity to excel requires time and investment. And understand that successful people see this as an investment of time, where people who are not so successful see it as a waste of time. And it's a very different mindset. One is viewing it from an expense point of view, and one is viewing it from a future investment potential point of view. Next, Mr. Gladwell tackles the idea of the relationship between intelligence, or IQ, and success. And one of the things his research pointed out I found quite interesting was that there truly is a relationship between intelligence and success up until you get an IQ of about 120. So in other words, the higher your IQ is, the more likely you are to be successful up until you have the IQ of 120. After 120, all bets are equal. And people have an opportunity. Then it becomes a matter of work and hard work and desire and growing. And the key is understanding this. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room ever. What you have to be is the one who makes the most out of his opportunities. So when you going to an Ivy League school might be better in many ways than going to a community college. However, if you go to the Ivy League school and you do not have your mind open to opportunities and a desire to learn, it will be no better. In fact, it may be worse than going to a community college where you're driven to learn and you're reading and you're applying things and you're questioning things and you're trying to figure out new ways to get better. And that leads us to the lesson of hard work. And here's what we know. If you work hard enough, you assert yourself, and you use your mind and your imagination and creative capacities, you can shape the world in which you inhabit. You can become the success that you so strongly desire because you apply things. And this is why reading is such an important thing. I once read an article that said Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, reads upwards of 60 books a year. And 60 books is a lot in a given year. That means more than one a week he's reading. For my own habits, I read every time I get an opportunity. I read lots and lots and lots of books. I try to read widely. I read books in business. I read books in leadership. I read books in business continuity, as has become a recent area of interest, both at work and in my practice. And so I find the desire to learn and to have my mind challenged by the thoughts of others. And so reading is very much like hiring a coach for the price of the book. And if you happen to use libraries, it might even be free. But the point is, the learning you get, the experience you get becomes priceless. And here's why. Here's the most important part of that. Understanding that you and I come from very unique cultural, educational, religious, social backgrounds that make us different. And difference in this regard provides this real area of strength. It's recognizing that every culture, regardless of what culture we're talking about here, has its own strengths and limitations. And as you and I become better at recognizing those strengths, capitalizing on them, developing them to be even stronger, and also understanding the limitations and figuring out ways to mitigate those limitations with increased knowledge, increased learning, increased application in our life, we grow. We grow as human beings, and we become better and stronger and better able to handle things. But here's the thing. It requires work. In Western culture, work is a 4-letter word. People don't like it. They prefer the 3-letter words of off, with nothing to do. The truth of the matter is this. In order to get to the point where you have time off, you need to work hard and provide for yourself. In other cultures, for example, Eastern cultures, Asian cultures, for example, people will work extremely long hours doing extremely tedious tasks to provide for their families, to provide for their futures, to provide a house and food and whatever basic necessities they might require. And here's the thing. For them, work has a meaning. In Western cultures, we've removed meaning and just replaced it with a task to be done. And while that's fine in terms of being productive, what the problem is, if you don't see your work, whatever it is, whether it's working at home, working in a business, working in a school, it doesn't matter. If you don't see your work as being of value to you and to others, pretty soon it becomes tedious, and pretty soon it becomes something to be resented rather than valued. The key to work, the key to success is working hard, growing, allowing our minds to expand, and continually striving to apply new lessons to our lifestyle that allows us then to become better and better at whatever it is we do. Here's the thing. All of our backgrounds are unique. All of our backgrounds have tremendous strengths, even the ones that you might think, well, mine isn't so strong. I grew up here and there and the other where. The point of the matter is this. No matter where you grew up, no matter who your parents were, no matter what your educational background is, those are all facts, all things that are to be valued. But they do not have to limit you unless you allow them to. And by reading, that is one of the most surefire ways that I know of to challenge your mind, to stretch your mind in new ways. And what we know from education and research is this, that when our mind is stretched in new ways, it doesn't automatically revert to the way it was. That is called growth. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what growth is all about. So as we continue to grow, and in this segment, I will review more and more books that I've come across that have challenged me. Many of these books will be classics in literature. Some of them will be classics in business genre. Some of them will be newer books that are just written that I picked up in the airport as I was traveling or wherever. And the point is, I want to share with you things that I'm learning with the idea that hopefully this will spur you to grow yourself and to develop yourself. And always know that if you would like help in this area, we're here for you at Tier 1 Coaching and Training. We have lots and lots and many, many years of experience to share with you, things that can be lessons and things that can help you overcome those obstacles that you have right now in your life. Again, this is Roy Sheneman, founder and CEO of Tier 1 Coaching and Training. And I thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to our next installment when we look at even more books that are designed to help you grow as a leader.